Hello, welcome to Recentered, a VR podcast. My name is Gary from the YouTube channel Immersed Robot, and with me is Rog, also known as Flute Rogie. How are you, Rog? What have you been up to?
I'm good, thanks very much. It's been more Demio for me, Demio, however you want to pronounce it.
Yep.
And possibly the worst game ever seen on the Labyrinth course of Walkabout Mini Golf. It was, oh man, it's like so many double bogeys. I ran out of Kleenex. It was just that bad. But a good laugh all the same.
Yeah,
but,
I've not got the DLCs for Walkabout. We were talking about this behind the scenes because I'd like to play Walkabout with you sometime. But I've only got the. I will buy the DLCs if they're much better than the standard courses. I don't know.
I mean, they're just so cheap though. You can't go wrong. You know. But yeah, the main thing is this weekend pop down to Manchester to the arcade club there, which is an old converted 4-story mill, just packed with old arcade games. 16 quid to get in, and then everything's on free play. So yes, fun to be had there, definitely.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of retro gaming podcasts, and they always, the British ones, they always mention Arcade Club. There's one in, it's Bury, isn't it? The Manchester one, Bury, and then there's another one. Where's that?
There's two more. There's one in Leeds and there's one in Blackpool.
Right, okay.
But apparently the one in Bury is the biggest one, the best one.
Yeah, I am going to go there one. You did invite me. I wasn't able to make it this time, unfortunately, but I want to go there at some point. But yeah, what was it like?
I mean, it's really good. I did go about 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years back, and I think there was just 2 floors open then. Now they're on 4 floors. Maybe there's a few more things, but more than anything, I think it's more spaced out now, so it doesn't feel as crowded as it did originally. But the first time I went, they did actually have quite a few sort of VR stations set up. They had stations with Beat Saber, Project Cars, they had PSVRs set up that you could just go and have a go on. But all that's gone now. A mate of mine seemed to think they'd moved that to one of the other locations, but I think maybe it's just a bit of a hassle because you've got to have somebody stood there monitoring and helping people out all the time with the VR equipment. The only VR thing that was there was an arcade machine, basically a first-person shooter with like a big plastic rifle you held suspended from a cable, and it had a HMD mounted on the back of it. I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure if it like a Rift S or similar-ish. I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah.
But that's mounted on the back, and so you hold it up as if you're holding like an assault rifle close to you, and you look through the HMD on the back of the rifle. And then you just turn around, and I think it was sixed off. I think it did track when you moved side to side as well as rotation and everything. Right. And yeah, I mean, it worked fairly well, really. It definitely loses something when you've just not got your natural free look head movement as you would in normal VR, because you've got, you sort of had to point where you wanted to look with your gun and turn the whole thing itself.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a basic VR thing. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Yeah, not bad at all. Although my mate Darren, who was having a go on it, he was looking through the HMD, and what happens is when it finishes, the entire thing retracts. It's hanging from a cable, so the gun retracts upwards and out the way of everybody, I suppose.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the HMD was slightly snug, and it took his glasses with it.
Oh right. Okay.
into the heavens. So it's like reaching up to grab it before his glasses got smashed against the overhanging support.
Yeah. Well, I didn't expect there to be any VR stuff there. I didn't know there was any VR stuff there, to be honest. But even with that one machine, and you mentioned previously they had some VR stuff, because I expected it was all sort of 80s arcade machines, but they've got quite a bit of 90s stuff in there as well, have they? Is it mainly 90s, or have they got a lot of 80s arcade machines?
Right. Well, the entire top floor is pretty much 80s. I think it is all sort of the retro 80s stuff, from anywhere from Asteroid Space Invaders, Tron, sit down Star Wars cabinet. It's just all the classic sort of retro 80s stuff covers that top floor. The ones below it's a bit of a mixture. There's a lot of Japanese stuff there. I'm not entirely sure how old, new or old it is. Some of it looks relatively new, but there seems to be a lot of dance-related arcade machines there. But like I say, a lot of it is a lot of Japanese stuff where there was one thing I couldn't even get the game to start. I absolutely had no idea what was going on. It just all I could do was go through menus and menus and menus, and I gave up on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a fair good mixture. There's some really large sort of cabinets there as well. Like was it House of the Dead one where you sort of like go inside the cabinet, sit down. There's a Luigi one.
Right. Okay.
They've got a Star Wars battle pod.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, so they've got some really big units there. They must have spent a fair wad on some of the gear they've got, and I can't imagine what the electricity bill is.
yeah, especially at the moment. And because you shared a few pictures with us as well, and I mean, just looking at the pictures, the amount of arcade machines they've got them stacked literally side by side. It looks like for going on for forever. But yeah, it seems like if you're into that kind of stuff, then it looks like a dream come true, really. And
yeah.
Is that the biggest one, or are they all varying sizes? Because I can't understand how there can be that many arcade machines that they can get a hold of.
Yeah, the Berry one is the biggest one, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
I've not been to the others, but that's what people seem to suggest anyway.
Yeah, that was my impression as well.
But also a good place if you're into pinball as well. There's one of the floors as you walk in down the entire side. This massive long. It's basically it looks like a warehouse, an old mill. Yeah, there's just pinball machines what just stretch all the way down.
Yeah,
along one side of the thing. It's quite a sight.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'll definitely get there at some point in my life. God knows when. But yeah, for me, so this week I've not been doing too much. I did finish Red Matter 2, just to touch on that. That was on our first episode that we did a review on that.
Excellent.
Yeah, Red Matter, it is fantastic. The ending was great as well. A little bit obscure, like the first one. It leaves you thinking, I think, at the end. But yeah, a really satisfying ending, and pretty much stand by everything I said in that first episode we had. And I think it's just great. It's a must play for a Quest game, without a doubt. And even on PC, playing it on PC, which I did jump into, it's a shame that the save doesn't go over or anything like that. But I played a little bit on the PC, just like 20 minutes or so, just to get an idea of it. And it looks great. It does look great. And it's not just about looks. I think just the how fluid it plays and that kind of stuff. These native VR games just feel great when you've got them. You've got developers that obviously know what they're doing with VR, and it's not always the case, but with that one, it certainly is. Yeah,
definitely. It's a step above everything else on Quest, at least anyway. And on PC, it's just got that nice sharpness to it. It really does look good.
Yeah. Okay, we should probably get into the show then. We've got a few topics that we want to touch on, and then we've got a main topic for the show, which is going to be our favourite top 3 VR games individually, and we don't know what each other have chosen, although Rog seems to have guessed most of mine, because I'm that predictable, it turns out. But we'll get onto that at the end of the show. But first up, the first story we want to talk about is actually just a few hours old, actually. Rog sent me this, the Firewall Ultra announcement for PSVR2. We've got a short trailer of it. It doesn't give too much away. It looks like pre-rendered footage, but it does say it's rendered in the game engine, and it looks good. I'll be honest, Firewall, the original game, I didn't play too much of. I did play a little bit, but it's not really my kind of thing, that kind of multiplayer shooter, really. But I know that it went down really well, the original. A lot of people really enjoyed it. Rog, how much did you play of the original game?
Absolutely zero.
Oh, really? I thought you played it.
No. I did pick up an aim controller, but I bought that to play Farpoint. The thing what put me off more than anything, it wasn't the game. It's not that I didn't want to have a look at the game itself. It was the tracking. It was never quite right for me.
No.
So there's just the tracking on the aim controller. It's like, you could, if it started to drift, you could like give it a shake and it'd sort of line itself back up again. But it annoyed me too much to the point that I never bought anything else for the aim.
Yeah, I bought the aim controller for the same reason as you. It's Farpoint, really. So I did have it when I picked up Firewall, but it's just not my kind of game. That's really what it comes down to. I like a campaign, or, even because this didn't have like a co-op campaign, the original, did it? And it doesn't look like the sequel will have that, at least at launch anyway.
It does well. If you actually go to the PlayStation blog, there is a bit of info on there, and it does actually say there's a PvE mode on it, although it doesn't expand on that. So there is some sort of co-op thing in there that wasn't in the original, but
probably
Yeah,
probably not a story or something like that to play through. I wouldn't imagine, but
probably not. Probably a wave shoot, just like a basic wave shooter mode or something.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to touch on this trailer as well, just looking, because at the end it does mention all the features, every feature of the hardware, the PSVR2. It talks about in this game it's going to have use the adaptive triggers. It's got finger touch detection, eye tracking with foveated rendering as well, fast load times, 4K HDR, haptic feedback, all of these things. So it points out, really, to me, just looking at that, more than the game itself, which of course I'm excited for the people that are going to really get into this game, but it points out just how good the PSVR2 headset is going to be like on paper. It's outstanding, really, what they've got going on here.
Oh, I just hope it isn't a disappointment.
Yeah,
it's got a lot to live up to. But one of the things it did mention was it actually uses the gaze tracking for like fast weapon selection or something. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, it says on the blog post, I think it says intuitive, let you swap. Intuitive weapon selection or something like that, and you can bring up the HUD indicators and stuff. So. By using the eye tracking. So that's interesting, yeah. I think these are some of the things which are going to be most impressive when you first get the PSVR 2, other than obvious things like the resolution increase and that kind of stuff. I think that the way they use eye tracking in some of these games, which it looks like they are pushing in some ways, is going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it's I just want to get hold of one.
Yeah.
Hopefully, though, this trailer dropping might be the start of a few more things being revealed. It's we've been waiting so long for any news. I think any little tidbit what sort of drops is like, it's like, oh, is there more coming? Is there more coming? And then so far it's been, oh no, there isn't.
Yeah.
But hopefully this month will be the month.
So with regards to this, like the trailers that we've seen of new, I think actually, because I saw a video on PSVR Without Parole, they did a video of like the launch titles or the games that are coming to PSVR 2 that confirmed. And obviously I think some developers have spoken about this, like obviously like Lo-Fi, I think the developer of Ultra Wings 2 actually accidentally posted a picture of their PSVR 2 as well at one point. But so we know all of those kinds of titles, but these sort of these ones that we weren't necessarily like the ones which are more of a surprise, I suppose, like the Horizon. Firewall isn't really a surprise. First Contact, we knew that they were working on something, and it was almost certainly going to be this. But is there anything else that you know of that is as big as sort of a Horizon or anything like that at the moment? Or...
No, I mean it's all speculation, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the big one has got to be like Gran Turismo 7, which is like, surely that has got to be there when it launches.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, it's got to be. That has got to be there, hasn't it?
You would think so, but Gran Turismo has got such a history of being delayed again and again and again. It's, it won't surprise me if it isn't.
Yeah.
Although I think it's got to be at some point. It's got to be during that first sort of 6 months, surely.
I would hope so. And it always brings back memories of the original, like the Grand GT Sport that they had with the sort of lackluster VR support for the original PSVR. They had like a few tracks and you could only race against one car and these kinds of things. But hopefully they've implemented VR in the full game. That would be fantastic. It's got to be on the cards, that one, surely.
It's got to be the full game. I think there'll be riots if it isn't.
Yeah. So yeah, Firewall Ultra, not one that I'm particularly like chomping at the bit for, but I know a lot of people are, and I know that it's going to go down really well. So I'm pleased about that at least. And like you say, hopefully this is the start of some trailers. We'll get some announcements now for PSVR 2.
Yeah, certainly hope so.
Okay, moving on then. So just a quick note, really. This is something that probably everybody is already aware of, but Half-Life 2, the VR mod, is going to be releasing on Steam next week, September the 16th. And so I'll be picking this up. Is it going to be charged? I assumed it was free. Is that right?
It's a free mod as far as I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah.
You just need to own the base game, which
Yes.
I'm pretty much sure everybody must do now at this point.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. And I've not played this because there was a closed beta, and I think quite a few people did get access to it, but the reports coming out of that are like, it's more or less, it seems like a native VR game is what it feels like from a lot of the reports I've been seeing of this. Yeah.
The weird thing is, I played, and I don't know how many sort of newer people be aware, but back in 2013, Valve had a version of Half-Life for VR, for the DK1. And I don't know if it's still there, sat in the options menu or not, because I've not played it in ages.
It's not. Yeah, they took it out. Yeah.
I played through the entire thing, 8 or 9 years ago. And even if it was a mouse and keyboard, so a bit controversial there. But somebody back then actually did a Razer Hydra mod. So you could play it with Razer Hydras.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I didn't play it in VR back then, but I did hear that you could do it. And of course, it didn't have controller support because it's actually been updated to have controller support now because it was released on Steam Deck, so you can play it on Steam Deck with controllers. And it would have been good to play it that way in VR even, but this, having full motion controller support and that kind of stuff, and it to behave like a native VR game with interactions behaving in the way you want them to behave, that's fantastic. I can't wait for this. I'll be getting this day one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, Half-Life 2, better than Half-Life Alyx, can't argue with that.
Well, we'll see about that later. No, actually, maybe I can't argue with that, but we'll get onto that anyway. Okay, just quickly as well, before we get into the main topic, is Nofio, which is that, it's got to be how you pronounce it, hasn't it? Nofio?
Not a clue. Looks like it.
It's got to be. But this is a wireless Valve Index add-on, which is now, and the Kickstarter is now live for this. So it uses Wi-Fi 6E. I think basically they give you a Wi-Fi 6E router, which has been already set up to work with the attachment which goes onto the headset. As far as I know, that's my understanding of it, and I probably should have looked into this a little bit more before talking about it. But the Kickstarter is live for those that are interested. And it looks like, so the early bird is for 569 Australian dollars, which is approximately £335. Although I would imagine you've got quite a bit of shipping to add on to that as well. So you're probably talking more or less around £400, do you think, for the complete package if you go for the early bird?
Oh, yeah, easily.
Yeah.
If you look at a Tilt 5, shipping and import on that costs you about 70 quid or more.
Oh, so, really? Okay.
Yeah,
so it's quite an expensive thing. It's not something that I'm going to go in for. I will say, like, I'm really interested in it, and if it wasn't quite so expensive, and if it came out maybe sooner in the Index's lifespan, then maybe I would have been tempted. But at this point, I don't think... I'm not bothered enough by the cable. I'd rather the Valve Index was wireless, of course, but I'm not bothered enough to spend sort of £400 on this kind of thing. I would like playing with the Quest 2 wireless with Airlink. It does make me like the fact that you've got a lot more freedom with that kind of stuff. So it's definitely got its value, and I'm sure there will be. Well, already I think it's got something over £300,000 of support from a £185,000 goal from something like just under 1,000 backers already, and it's only been live today, I think. So
yeah,
so it's doing well.
They've doubled what they wanted, apparently, already from when we're recording this. So they've got the money, but I'm surprised it's sort of taken this long. Because is this the first wireless solution for the Index?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, Valve were talking about wireless being a solved problem back in 2017, and they've not released anything. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think part of this is because it's using Wi-Fi 6E. I don't think that's been sort of as readily available or as cheap in routers and that kind of stuff as it is now. I don't think they could have really done this in this way a couple of years ago, perhaps. Maybe they could, but it would have cost a lot more. At least that's my understanding. But you don't own an Index, but is this something you could see, like, could you see yourself spending something like that on a headset that's 3 years old?
That's a tricky one. It depends how I still viewed that headset. But no, I don't. I think I'd be waiting for the next big thing that's around the corner. But saying that, if you're really into, if you're a proper Valve fan, you love your Index. I think. Personally, no.
No,
but judging from what you see on the forums, on Discord, and everything, there's plenty of people out there who are absolutely gagging to get hold of this thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really love my Index. I really do, and I think when I go from like my Quest 2 to my Index when playing PC games, I notice a difference, and to me, it's a more comfortable headset. It's better. I like it, but it's just that cost, I suppose. It's like, I know that better headsets are coming in the near future, hopefully, and also the cost of that on top just makes me hesitant to pick it up. And I would love it. I would love an Index, a wireless Index, but it's not something that I'm willing to do at this point. Really, I'd rather wait at this point. Yeah,
it's a big chunk of change on top. Definitely, it's if it was if you've got a headset and it's a year old headset or something, then fine. But yeah, like you say, 3 years on.
Yeah, but there's still
a tough one.
Like I say, there's still definitely enough demand for it. They've done really well on Kickstarter, so all the best to them. Hopefully they can deliver on time and everybody gets a great experience with it. I know I'll just quickly point out as well, because they had some, sadly it's Bradley and Thrill Seeker, I think Kaz and Cherry as well. I think they've all had hands-on with it and they seem to report really positively on it.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, in terms of like latency and stuff like that, it seems to have almost no problems at all. I think Bradley mentioned there's perhaps he noticed a few minor artifacts here and there, but not really enough to worry about too much. So
yeah,
it seems like a good system anyway. And the fact that they're getting all of these sort of high profile content creators in to try it and give honest opinions on it, I think that speaks, because Bradley did say he wouldn't pick one up at the moment, based on similar reasons, really, like the Index is a little bit older now, and the price and that kind of stuff. But he did say that it was a good. It did what it attempted to do anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people out there who seem to think Tilt 5's a good product as well.
Well, actually, just give us a quick update, just before we move on to our top 3 games. Give us a quick update on Tilt 5. What's going on there?
Not much to say, really, apart from tech support finally got in touch with me. I had to go through one of the guys on Discord to get him to poke somebody in tech support. I've sent him some videos, audio clips, photographs and stuff, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, okay. Fingers crossed for that then. Hopefully it is a defective unit and you'll get a new one and it'll be great. Okay. We'll get on to our main topic now then. So this is interesting because Rog actually came up with the idea for this top 3, our top 3 VR games. It's very, very difficult to come up with a top 3 when you're limited to that number. There's a lot of games over the years that we've played, and it's just tough to narrow it down to that extent. And it might change, daily, really, but not really. Some of them, I think I can confidently say, will be in here for a long time. So what we'll do, if we alternate, if you want to go first, give me one of your top 3. And these are not in any order, by the way. I've not put mine in any order. I hope you haven't either.
I am so glad you've said this, because I can definitely place what I'd put at number 3, but I was going to say for the other 2 that they'd be joint first.
Right, okay.
Because I wouldn't be able to separate them. So yeah, no order. Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so you go ahead. You give us your first of your top 3 VR games ever. Right.
This is a really old one. Okay. And basically, it's Lunar Flight.
Okay.
Solo developer Sean Edwards, Shovesoft, also known as. And basically, if you've never seen it, it's kind of like Lunar Lander in 3D. Okay.
Was this sorry, just quickly? Was this was this a DK1 or like a early DK?
Yes.
Yeah.
This game got me through the entirety of the DK1 and absolutely nothing else to play on it, or very little anyway. It was my go-to game for listening to podcasts. Right. I would get in this, fly missions, which basically was take cargo from point A to point B, or there's some missing cargo out on the moon or out on the surface of Mars somewhere. Go find it, pick it up, and bring it back. And it was sort of well known for having a really high difficulty curve. It really took some time to learn how to fly this thing.
Like the original arcade game as well. It's is it Lunar Lander, the arcade game that it's sort of based on? Yeah,
it was the old sort of vector.
Yes, game, I play that on my arcade machine now and again, and that's a tough game as well.
Yeah, it was great. It really got me through the DK1 and a lot of the DK2. But if you remember, I'd say how good it is. If you remember, I don't know if you remember Cymatic Bruce's live streams back in the early days. He was one of, if not the first, consistent VR streamer.
Okay.
And he got a DK1 really sort of ahead of everybody else. He was really early on the list, and he used to do Twitch streams and post stuff to YouTube, etc. But oh man, he did at the end of I think at the end of 2013, beginning of 2014, he did his top 20 games. So Rift hadn't been out for a year, or the DK1 hadn't been out for a year then. He did his top 20 games, and Lunar Flight was number one, as voted by him and the people who watched his streams as well. Okay, and it beat out stuff like Euro Truck Simulator 2, the early version of Dreadles, and even the Half-Life 2 VR mod.
Wow,
what was about at the time. It was really good. I'm not saying I can't say I could recommend it these days. There seems to be sort of mixed feelings on the forums whether it works properly or not. That there haven't been any updates for a long time. Some people have problems creating a new pilot. Some people have problems with the controls. There is an anniversary edition you can opt into, and that's also available on the Rift store as well, I think. But how well they actually play now, I don't know. Okay. But the online high scores are missing as well, which really annoys me, because on the overall experience points leaderboard, I had the number one spot. Me and a guy called Rip Curl used to go at each other, getting vying for that top spot.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, at one point, he had a hard drive crash, lost his save, and Lunar Flight didn't back up your save to the clouds. So that was the end of that.
Oh,
but,
right.
Yeah. But I owe that game so much for getting me through the DK1 and DK2 days.
Okay, so Lunar Flight. So you said that's available on the Oculus store, is it? An anniversary edition?
It's available on the Rift store. Yeah, it's not on Quest. It's on the Oculus Rift store. Yeah, and on Steam. But if you do decide to go and have a look at it, have a read up on it first, because a lot of people seem to be having problems with it nowadays.
Okay. There you go. That's a good tip. I might give that a try myself, actually, but we'll see how well it plays now anyway. So over to me then. So the first one that I'm going to go for, and it's no surprises really, I might as well just get this one out of the way. It's Elite Dangerous. And that's because this is a game which I watched even before I had a VR headset. I was watching like the VR Spies play. They used to do streams where they would all meet up and do the arena kind of combat missions and stuff like that in Elite Dangerous. So even before I got VR, I knew that this was one that I wanted to play. I'm a lifelong I'm a little bit obsessed with space. I've always loved anything to do with space at all, and I've got all these space books and that kind of stuff around, and I've always had them as a kid. So anything to do with space I've always sort of gravitated towards, and as a kid all I wanted was my own spaceship. And it's not too much to ask, is it? I just wanted my own spaceship, and my parents never bought me one. So Elite Dangerous is my way of having a spaceship just to fly around the galaxy, and that's what it delivers to me. And just playing this in VR, it's just such an incredible experience. Anybody that has any inclination to play space games and they love VR, I can highly recommend Elite Dangerous. But it's a simulation, really. It's more of a simulation, at least at the beginning, I think. It plays into that because it's got realistic flight mechanics and those kinds of things when flying in space, and it's got a flight assist, so it doesn't feel that way, but you can turn that off and play around with all of these little physics that it's got in it. But at the end of the day, as a VR game, one of the things that excites me about VR is just having this world that you can explore. And this game gives you a galaxy to explore. And yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I know you're a fan of Elite Dangerous as well, Rog. Yeah,
I must admit, this would have, if we'd have been picking more titles, this would have been my number 4.
Yeah.
It was nearly my number 3. But I went with my heart on Lunar Flight. If I'd have gone with my head, I'd have said Elite Dangerous. If you're going to check either of those two out, then you go with Elite Dangerous, really. Dogfighting in an asteroid field for the first time is one of my VR highlights. It's just incredible. This game goes on sale so much for literally £3 or £4 for the base game. There's no reason not to pick it up and try it out. It has got a steep learning curve, but there is a lot to learn. But you can take your time in learning those, the mechanics of the game. You've got to have a look at it, definitely.
Absolutely, and one of the things like that learning curve as well. I mean, I don't know everything about Elite Dangerous. I've put something like 200 hours into it, something like that. I'm still a beginner. That is still a beginner in the world of Elite Dangerous, but once you get past that initial learning curve, and it's improved. I will say it's improved since I first started playing it many years ago, because they have better tutorials now to get you into the game and that kind of stuff. But one of the things that you mentioned there about how cheap the game is so often is one of the things which I think is a little bit troubling at the moment as well, because I don't know how much incentive Frontier have to keep supporting this. And one of the things with it is the latest DLC, which is called Odyssey. It's Elite Dangerous Odyssey, which brings in whole new gameplay mechanics, some of which allow you to go on foot on planets and walk around on planets and that kind of stuff. It's not available in VR. So this is one of the downsides with Elite Dangerous. It's still in my top 3, but it's a major criticism of the VR game at the moment, because you can't play these on-foot sections in VR. And it's so frustrating because it's an easy fix. I'm not a Frontier dev, but it's an easy fix because it's included. It is there. If you use the Vanity Cam in Elite Dangerous, you can play the game in VR on foot. But they've just not enabled a proper way to do it. And the reason why you have to use the Vanity Cam is they've obviously just not decided not to take that away from VR. But you can't play the game with the Vanity Cam because you don't get the HUD and this kind of stuff. So all they really need to do is provide a HUD, a first-person view camera, and that will solve all the problems. I think one of the things they mentioned with this, I don't want to go on too long with Elite Dangerous and the criticism when it's my top 3 games, but one of the things I mentioned with this is that if they want to do VR with Odyssey, with the on-foot sections, they want a proper VR experience where it will be with motion controllers and this kind of stuff. That's probably never going to happen, but if they can just give us a controller-based on-foot sections in VR, then that would do, pretty much everybody would be happy with that, I think, just as a stopgap to the point where if they ever decide to implement motion controller support, then most people would take that.
Absolutely. I mean, as much as we want motion controller support, just let us go on foot in VR. Regardless of the control scheme, you'd please a lot of people.
Yeah. And I know it's easy for me to sit here and say, it's an easy fix for them to do that. But in this case, I really think they could just allow it. It's almost like they're blocking the VR content on there rather than just allowing people. And I think they're worried about people getting sick, motion sickness and that kind of stuff. But just enable it as a beta option or something, or just a small option within the menu system. But anyway, it's one of my top 3 games. So criticism aside, it's still incredible. In spite of those problems, it's still absolutely an incredible experience in VR. Okay. So go ahead. What's your next game?
Okay, so this one's a bit of an odd one for me, as I vividly remember arguing about it in the chat with Anthony on one of his VR 365 streams. Okay, and it's Astrobot Rescue Mission.
Okay,
At the time, everyone had been utterly raving about it, and then I got to play through it, and I enjoyed it, and I finished it, and I thought everyone had overrated it. I just couldn't understand what everybody was
Really?
going on. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, quite a while later, I went back and played it again for lack of anything else to do at the time. And I went through it. I played it again, picked up all the collectibles I'd missed, did all the time trials, platinumed it, and that second time round, I absolutely fell in love with it. Yeah. It's, for whatever reason, it's just one of those rare games for me that it was better the second time around. It's just one of the most joyful, most wondrous, insert all the superlatives here. Nothing makes you feel as happy in VR as that game. It's just so good.
It is incredible. And one of the things as well, because my wife doesn't really play VR at all, but we played through that together, like taking it in turns, alternate levels, and that is one of the things. She absolutely loves that game as well, and she probably likes it more than me, and I think it's great. And it never even occurred to me to put it on my top 3 for some reason. I don't think it would have made it anyway for me, but it is a great game.
Yeah. Did you ever play the time trials at all?
It's probably not. No, I think I just played through the campaign because I played it when it first came out, and I've not touched it since. So
it's that sort of stuff in games, time trials in games. I normally hate, but they were so well done, and they remixed a lot of stuff. The levels were different to the main levels, and they were tough but fair, and it just everything about that game, everything apart from having to use the touchpad to swipe ninja stars out when you've got a perfectly good trigger, that does nothing. That's my only criticism with it, because you had to take your right hand and start swiping the trackpad, at which point you'd removed your ability to jump.
Yes, yeah.
And that was just such a crazy bad design decision. I never understood that. But that aside, stunning.
It is. I would love to play that on PSVR2 if they do. I don't see why they wouldn't do like a backwards compatible version of that, because I can understand like there being problems with backwards compatibility with certain games on PSVR2 because of the control method, the move controllers compared to gamepad. But with that one, that works on gamepad, so it would look great. Is that the thing with the original PSVR is, of course, like the resolution and that kind of stuff. But playing that with real crystal clear, sharp graphics would be fantastic.
Definitely. Well, I mean, is it Team Asobi?
Yes.
Name of it? I mean, they've already said they're working on their biggest game yet. Just hope beyond hope. It's Rescue Mission 2.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, so my next one is another one which none of mine are going to be surprises to anybody, really, I suppose. If they've watched any of my YouTube channel, then they probably know a lot of what I'm going to say. And this is one that I've not actually featured a lot on my channel, but I've mentioned numerous times, and it's Half-Life Alyx, of course. I've got to put this one in, much to Roger's annoyance. But we'll get into that in a second.
Yes. Okay.
So Half-Life Alyx, the reason I've put this in is it's, without question, of this type of game, it's the most immersed I've been in VR within this world that they've created. It's often compared to Boneworks for some reason, and I know the reason. It's because they're both pushing physics, really. That's why it gets compared to Boneworks. Other than that, they're really not that similar in terms of game, like the type of game that they are. But they both pushed physics, and Boneworks pushed physics even further than Half-Life Alyx did. And to me, one of the reasons why I prefer Half-Life Alyx to Boneworks is simply because it plays into the VR hardware that we have today. It stays rigidly within those bounds, and it sticks to it and gives you the best experience that it can deliver within those bounds. The problem with Boneworks, in my opinion, I know not everybody feels like this, but it tries to push the physics and the gameplay and the interactions beyond what you can comfortably do on today's VR hardware. And by that, I mean things like inverse kinematics of the body, the full body in VR in Boneworks feels janky to me. And Half-Life Alyx will have a criticism where they have floating hands and these kinds of things. But I would rather take that as a personal choice over janky inverse kinematics on a full body which don't match to what my body is doing in real life. I hate that. And it's one of my main criticisms of Boneworks. What people love about Boneworks, I actually really dislike about it. I don't know, there seems to be like two camps with regards to this. People that feel the same way as me and people that love Boneworks. But I'm using Boneworks just to highlight the reason why I think Half-Life Alyx stayed with me so much, and that's because it does stick within those solid, rigid bounds of what you can achieve in VR today on limited VR hardware, and it does it the best. In terms of gameplay, it's fluid and it feels great to play through that game. It's slow paced, but they're using the index especially to just use that slow-paced gameplay to give you the best possible experience in terms of what they can deliver in current-day VR hardware. And that's why I feel like I get this sense of immersion in this game. It's not a perfect game, and you can clearly see where it was originally designed to be teleport only. And this is one of the problems with it, I think. There are certain parts where you get taken out of it because they added in smooth locomotion towards the end. I don't think that's any secret. I think they actually said that themselves. And you can clearly see that within the game, and it does cause a few problems. But overall, I don't think I've ever felt as immersed in a game as I have in Half-Life Alyx. But, Rog, why am I wrong?
Look, I agree with you on the sort of Alyx versus Boneworks comparison. I'd rather have something solid that works rather than Boneworks really weird. Sometimes over the top physics system. The thing I've got with Alyx is, right, it's an amazing experience. Being in that world and seeing how good it looks is absolutely fantastic, and you should absolutely try it. The problem I have with it as an actual game, I was just and it's sort of what I mentioned earlier. It's nowhere near as good a game as Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
The combat is just, or the setups for the combat are just boring. It's like a couple of combine here and there. It's just the end of game boss was just sort of avoid things to get to a big gun and then shoot. It was, the game itself just was absolutely sort of mediocre for me. Yet the experience of being in that world, in those locations, was really, really good. Yeah,
I think I will agree with you. Like on Half-Life 2, it's a difficult comparison. The reason I like Half-Life Alyx, whether it's a better game overall than Half-Life 2, I'm willing to, have that argument really, because and you could very easily win me over to that. But I still think that it goes back to my original point that Half-Life Alyx toned back the gameplay in order to give us this really fluid experience in that game world. And I take your point really. Yeah, maybe it's more for me, the reason this is in my top 3 is more because of being in that world and how immersed I feel in that world rather than actual moment-to-moment gameplay. It's very easily that could be the case. But I also think that one of the things it does well is VR interactions. Again, it doesn't push these too far, but the interactions it has just work really well. And I think overall it has to be in there because for me, for this type of game, and I said this when I first played it, I think for this type of game, it has to be the best VR game that I've played, but for this type. And it's got any grounds for criticism on Half-Life Alyx are perfectly founded. I think I've listened to a lot of people that have contradictory opinions to me on Half-Life Alyx, and I can take all their points. I think everything you said I can pretty much agree with. I'm just looking at it in perhaps a different way. I'm putting my points in a different area to where you put your points, maybe.
Bizarrely, I think my next game on the list might have influenced my opinion of Alyx, because with Alyx, I know everybody always mentions the Jeff level.
Yeah.
And how terrifying it was and everything.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Yeah.
No, I don't. But I've got a very good reason for not agreeing with that. I think in my next game.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, let's hear it.
And well, it's the Mother VR mod for Alien Isolation.
Okay. Yes, good one. I like
this. That. Okay, this game single-handedly made me not scared of any other VR game. It's just fantastic. Now, I'm a massive fan of the original Alien and Aliens films. 3 and 4,
Yeah, yeah.
But Alien, definitely my original Alien, definitely my top sci-fi film of all time, and the feeling of being immersed in that world in Alien Isolation is just, I don't think they could have done a better job. And that, this was demoed at a trade. I can't remember which show it was, but one of the trade shows before Alien Isolation actually came out as a VR demo. So there was VR code in there, but they never continued with it and they never finished it off. And that code became the basis for Nebray's Mother VR mod.
Yeah.
It's just it nails the atmosphere of the films in the visuals, the aesthetics, the sound. If I put my headset on and just load that game up and hear that background ambient noise, my stomach absolutely drops. It's the only game I think I can say that's literally terrified me in places.
Yeah.
It's just the atmosphere is that good. The problem being, anything else, it pales into insignificance on the horror terror sort of side of things. Resident Evil 7 was like, yeah, this is good, but it's not particularly scary. And sort of like the dark and more horror areas of Alex as well just didn't have any effect for me. Whereas reading like people online getting really nervous about going into the dark areas to where, before you got the torch and things.
Yeah.
Or obviously the Jeff level where you hide, you're hiding from hiding from Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff is that's not a scary level because you can so easily control him. It's not. It's not a problem.
I never understood that, but for a lot of people, it was scary. And Resident Evil 7 as well. People still hold that up as one of the scariest games in VR, and it wasn't for me. And it's all the fault of Alien Isolation because for me it was that scary, and I could literally at times only play. I've still not finished it.
No, I've not either.
And I'm saying this is one of the best games. But I could only play it for 20, 30 minutes, and then I just have to calmly remove my head, put it aside, and go and do something else, because it literally gets to me that much, and nothing in VR has remotely triggered my emotions like that at all. So it's one of my top 3 for that reason.
It's definitely, it's got this constant tension. That's what that game is. That's the problem. It's constant unease because you never know, unless you've played through it before or certain sections before, you never know when the alien's going to arrive or what's going to happen, and avoiding it. It's just constant tension, but not just the alien. You've got those robots, which are horrific in VR. They're terrifying.
They are. One of the worst things as well is at one point I bought a butt kicker, basically like a base transducer, and I was playing Alien Isolation with that turned on, and I was hid in a corner next to a wall, and all I could hear and feel as well was the thump of the alien plodding through a nearby air vent, and you could feel every single step of it. And I was thinking, why am I doing this? But at the same time, it was just one of the most amazing things.
Yeah, I've not finished it either. I've played probably about 6 hours in VR, something like that. But it's absolutely. I mean, that's another one that didn't even occur to me, but it should have done, because that's a fantastic game, and it's one I played flat originally, like when it first came. Well, probably not when it first came out, but I played it on PS4 before I got VR. Not all the way through, but I played a fair bit of it then. But playing it in VR, and again, this is only a gamepad game. This isn't got any motion control. It's got motion controller support in the sense that you can use the thumbsticks to play it as a gamepad. Basically, now they've added that in.
Yeah, that's a good thing you just pointed out there. Every one of my games is gamepad.
Oh yeah.
I think Lunar Flight might have added motion controls modded in after I'd finished playing it. I'm not sure, but yeah. Every one of those is a gamepad game.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. You don't like motion controller hater. I'm with you. I think Alien Isolation is a great game, and it's an easy VR mod to install. It just works really. I mean, there's not a lot to it, and it looks great as well. So I think it can be quite demanding. You need or you can lower settings anyway to get it running well enough, I think. But I remember trying it on some of my lower cards that I used to have, like a 1070, I think I tried it on, and you could still certainly get it running on that. But if you want to ramp up the super sampling, as with anything, you need a more powerful PC. These mods, it's always down to the mods really. On flat games, you need as much power as you can throw at them, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, my final game then. This is one which I don't think you didn't predict. This one. This is the only one you didn't predict, and this is.
I predicted No Man's Sky.
Yes. So I nearly put No Man's Sky in because, of course, it is one of my favourite games, and it could have took Elite Dangerous's place, but I wanted one space game in there, and I decided to go for Elite Dangerous because I prefer that to No Man's Sky. But No Man's Sky could easily appear in this list. But this one is Skyrim VR. This is a weird one because.
This would have been my number 5.
There we go. Now, Skyrim VR, it really is one of the dream VR. Before I got VR, this was one of the dream VR games that I always wanted to experience in virtual reality, because this is almost the epitome of what a VR game could be. Presenting this full open world that you can go and explore at your leisure, and it represents almost like the true promise of VR, in my opinion. This is what VR should be, but it doesn't do it. It doesn't quite do it, and that's because Bethesda didn't put in enough effort to make it really fantastic. Fortunately, you can mod this game very easily as well and make it a much better VR game. It's still not perfect, but by adding things like graphical mods, graphical improvements, better VR interactions, and all of these other things, you can make it a fantastic VR experience all the way through. The thing that I was saying there about like it being like the promise of VR being open worlds, and this is really me. It's all down to me. This is why I don't get excited as much for things like Beat Saber or more arcadey games, because whenever I think of VR or the concept of VR going back when I used to think about it years and years ago, it was always about open worlds and having a real world to explore, and that's why Skyrim VR is in my list. And just on the gameplay side, I think it's got great gameplay. The writing's pretty good. You've got so much content in there. You could spend hundreds of hours exploring this place and not see everything. The other thing I'll quickly mention is Fallout 4 VR could have been in here, but Fallout 4 VR, in my opinion, is more janky than Skyrim VR, and it's more demanding. You can certainly add mods and make it a better game as well. And actually, I'm more of a sci-fi person than I am like a fantasy person, really. So I should have really gravitated towards Fallout 4 VR, but for whatever reason, Skyrim is the one. It runs really well on lower end machines. You can get really good performance on it, and you can mod it very easily and get an even better experience. So probably going around in circles a little bit, but this has to be on the list, and it's probably a bit of a surprise, but it's one that I absolutely adore.
No. I absolutely get it, and this genuinely would have been my number 5, purely because, again, like with Elite Dangerous, where like dogfighting in the asteroid field was one of my wow moments in VR. Skyrim did another one, and yeah, it was a great game. And okay, the interface, etc., not very good.
No,
but for me, playing Skyrim was all about the exploration, and I love exploration. And there was just one moment where I'd gone down yet another dungeon for the the umpteenth time, and I went down some stairs and I turned a corner and it looked like Moria from the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah,
the scale of it, and big pillars, massive open, and it was like jaw-dropping moment. And it's like, it's one of those moments what's cemented in my brain for being such an amazing experience. It's janky in places. The melee combat is bad, but if you play as a mage, or if you play as an archer, it's good. Yeah,
and just talk. I think modding this game more than anything else, it's almost essential, to be honest. If you're playing VR, you don't need to go mad with it, but I think just adding in a few little mods to make it a little bit better. Interactions, you can do things with physics with it, so you can have better hand interactions and stuff like that. There's loads. I won't go into all the mod side of this. That's probably an episode on its own. But yeah, Skyrim VR is a great game. So just quickly to wrap up my three, they were Elite Dangerous, Half-Life Alyx, and Skyrim VR. And what were yours, Rog?
Okay, Lunar Flight. Again, do your research before you go and buy it if you're going to check that one out. Astrobot Rescue Mission, essential PSVR game, and Alien Isolation Mother VR mod, which is as simple as just basically dropping a DLL file into the Alien directory and you're good to go.
Yes, yeah, really good. So that's pretty much it. So we should probably revisit this in a few months' time, because will they be the same? Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll have PSVR2s and it'll be we'll have a completely different list.
With any luck, it's got to change drastically. Surely. You would hope so much. Oh, so much.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Okay, so we'll wrap this one up then on this episode. This is the official episode 1. The last one was episode 0, bit of a tester, but we decided to go ahead with it. So this is episode 1. If you'd like to contact us, get in touch, give us some feedback or questions, then you can contact us on it's recenteredpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to watch the video of this, it's on YouTube. We're not on camera, but I'll provide sort of footage and stuff like that you can watch along while we're discussing all the various games. But this is primarily an audio podcast anyway. Any final words, Rog?
No, just hoping again beyond hope that we get some PSVR news this week, or at the very least this month. We've got to see something. Resident Evil 8 will be playable at Tokyo Game Show, so we'll definitely have the first hands-on impressions of PSVR2 from that. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get more.
Yep, fingers crossed for that. Okay, thank you very much for listening to this, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, everyone.